Hey everyone, Bob here, and today I want to continue on with the series of lessons that we've been working on about phrasing. And in order to really talk about phrasing, you have to understand all the elements of phrasing. So to date we've talked about hammer-ons and pull-offs, staccato, legato, and dynamics. And today I want to look at bending, which is definitely a big part of phrasing on the guitar. And I want to focus mainly on the technique today and some of the things that you should be working on. Let's talk about the technique first with the left hand. With the right hand, obviously, we're just going to be striking the note that we want to bend. So there's not much to talk about down here with the right hand. It's really all the action is in the left hand. So proper bending technique. First of all, you notice I got my thumb over the top of the fretboard, and it kind of hits. The fretboard kind of hits my thumb right where the where this knuckle is right here, this joint in the finger and the thumb. So my thumb just kind of hangs there. If it was a coat hanger, I could just sort of hang my thumb on the neck like that. So that gives me the stability from the top. I see a lot of people trying to bend with just their fingers or a finger like this with no support over the top. So this support over the top is really important because that gives us an opposing force. We got the force going down and the force coming up. That's going to make our bending a lot more stable. Now, the other thing then is using multiple fingers to bend. And I'm going to bend some different notes here for you. What I'm doing right now is I'm bending a G, and this is on the 8th fret on the 2nd string. And you can do this with different notes, different spots of the fretboard, which we're going to get to. So there are different distances that you need to be able to control and know how to bend. And I think obviously the one that we probably use the most is the whole step. So I'm going to bend the G up to the A, which is 2 frets up. And I'm going to start with my 3rd finger here, and that's probably the finger that we most often use. But I want you to notice I'm not just using my 3rd finger. I'm not doing this. I'm actually doing 2 fingers on that string. So I'm actually bending that note with 2 fingers. And anytime I can, I'm going to use multiple fingers to bend. That's going to make the bend easier to execute, and again, it's going to make it more stable and give us more control over what we're trying to do here. So here's the A. I'm going to listen to the A. So you should always have a target when you're practicing your bending. So again, I'm going to bend the G up to the A, right? So I'm going to move up to the A, 2 frets. I'm going to play that note a couple of times. Get the sound in my ear, and then I'm going to come back down and bend until I match that pitch. Now what will happen over time, your ear will improve, and also you'll get this physical memory. You'll just know how far you need to bend the strings. So that's a whole step. Now, again, I bent that note with my 3rd finger and with the help of the 2nd finger. Some people like to do 4th finger bending. Again, if I'm bending with the 4th finger, I actually have my 4th, 3rd, and 2nd fingers on the string all at the same time. And that's not something that I do very often. And then we also have a bend with the 2nd finger. So once again, I got my target here. And again, I'm bending with my 1st finger and my 2nd finger. Now, the only exception to this rule of bending with multiple fingers is when you're actually bending with the 1st finger. And here, there's obviously no support behind this finger. It's getting a little extra noise in there. I'm going to talk about how to eliminate that noise here in a second. So there you go. Noise eliminated. I'll have to show that to you with because it's the right hand that's actually eliminating the noise. So we're going to talk about different ways to eliminate the noise here as we go through some of these bends. So that's the technique of bending. Using multiple fingers to bend, thumb over the top. And we just talked about the whole step. Now another important bend is a half step bend. So in other words, I'm just going here again. I'm on the G, so I'm just going up 1 fret. This is a G sharp or an A flat. Same technique. I want to get that sound. Bend and match. And I saw a cool thing on a Joe Bonamassa video the other day. This is normally something you'd hear kind of in country music, in the key of C, for instance. Or, you know, that's also a blues turnaround. And what I saw Joe doing, you hear country players do this a lot. And Joe actually bent the half step here from the E flat up to the E. And then caught the C up here on the first string with his middle finger. So there's an example of that first finger bending in action. So I'm bending again. This is in the 8th fret. I'm bending the E flat, half step up to E, and then playing the C here, also in the 8th fret on the first string if you want to duplicate this lick. And I saw him do it in the context of, you know, he was playing some kind of blues lick. And ended it up like that. So that's an example where you might do a half step bend. And you hear these half step things all the time. You know, stay in the key of C here, you hear this kind of stuff. There's that half step from the E flat up to the E again on the first string. Now, again, you want to practice that half step bending with all the fingers. Get that sound in your ear. Now, I want to talk about some wider bending. Because this is important. You hear Albert King was a master of these wide bends. Jimmy Page, you know, everybody, Clapton, they all use these wide bends to get some variation. So the first one you want to look at is actually a minor third, which is 3 frets. So if I'm going to bend this this G here to a B flat, once again I'm getting the sound in my ear and bending up to match the note. And again, I can do that with all the different fingers. Now, I don't know if I'm going to try to bend you know, minor third with my first finger. Might be kind of tough, but it probably is doable if you work at it. And then of course you can go up to 2 steps if you want. So we can bend this G up to a B. Same procedure. You're going to get that sound in my ear. And bend it up to match. Now, I mentioned noise and a couple of things. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to eliminate the noise here in just a second, but before I do that, I want to show you 2 options for your bending, and I hope you can see this. I hope the camera picks it up. I'll try to zoom this in as much as I can. If I'm bending a note, I've got 2 choices here. I can, as I bend up, I'll stick on the G here we've been doing the whole time. Notice as I move up, notice the 3rd string starts to bend. And as I go farther and farther, all the strings start to bend. So you know, the 3rd string is bending, the 4th string is bending. So I'm actually, in effect, I'm having to push the weight of all those strings when I'm doing these wider bends. Now, what you can do, and this takes a little getting used to, it's kind of tricky, but let your fingernail, if you can, again, I'm going to try to demonstrate this, I hope you can see it. But I'm going to let my fingernail, it's sliding underneath the 3rd string. So now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but the 3rd string is actually up here, sitting on top of my fingernail. So my finger went under the string. I'm trying to get that in the camera for you there. And if you can get used to doing that, you can bend those wider distances easier because you're not pushing the weight of all the strings. So, you know, you can try that on some other spots on the fretboard if you want to. You know, I'm not really paying any attention to where I'm bending, but just working on letting my fingernail slide underneath the string so I can make those wider bends a little easier. So that's something that you might want to keep in mind and practice both ways, so it's either on top of the string or under the string. And usually I think if you go from that under the string thing, if you go a little bit more perpendicular, it's a little bit easier to do. Now, one other thing about bending here, we've talked about the thumb over the top, we've talked about the use of multiple fingers. We've talked about over the string, under the string. We've talked about practicing half steps, whole steps, minor thirds, and up to 2 whole steps, which is a major third. One other thing to practice is what's known as a reverse bend or a pre-bend, where you actually go ahead and have the note pitched. So in other words, this G is already up to an A, and then I just drop off the bend. So that's, you bend the note before you actually play it. So you want to work on those two, and that's where that muscle memory really comes in handy, knowing how far you need to bend the note before you actually play it. So you're in tune. So practice your bending, listening, get the note in your ear, and then work on trying to memorize that distance that you push the string, and work on that pre-bent sound. That's really a cool thing that I like to use, and you hear a lot of blues players doing that. It's a really cool sound. And last but not least, let's just talk a little bit about noise and how to eliminate the noise. Now, if you're bending with your third finger or a little finger, what I do often, I don't know if you can see that, but my index finger is actually laying across the strings here. So I just make a little move when I'm ready to bend. So in that instance, my index finger is doing the muting, and you could do that if you're bending with your fourth finger. If you're bending with your second finger and you're using the first finger for support, then you can't do that. And you also can't do that when you're bending with your first finger. Now again, this might be a little harder to see. I don't have a close-up camera for my right hand, but your right hand can also take care of the muting. And the way that works is, let's try to stick it in this other camera so we can get a close-up here. This fleshy part of the thumb, that's upside down right now, but that part of your thumb can be used. You lay that on the strings, so if I'm bending on the second string, I've actually got that fleshy part of my thumb touching the third string, fourth string, fifth string. So as I bend, that's what's doing the muting. So those are your 2 muting options on the bending. That you can use the fingers that are behind the note that you're bending on the left hand, or you can use your thumb, or a combination of the 2. Alright, so that's bending in a nutshell. So the absolute most important things to remember here, first of all, use your good technique. Be sure you use your thumb over the top. If you haven't been doing that, then please start doing that now and get used to it. And using multiple fingers to bend, very important. Being in tune is very important when you're bending, so use your ear, trust your ear, and do the method that I showed you, where you actually listen to your note, your target note, and then you go back and you match it. That's a really powerful little way to practice your bending and make sure you're getting them in tune. And then last but not least, we talked about how to eliminate the unwanted noise, and that would be either using the index finger on the left hand or the pad of the thumb on your picking hand. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that. And if you haven't spent some time working on your bending like this, do so. And as usual, I'll be back in a couple days. I'll have a solo. It's actually an older video that I did. I'm going to give it to you in a couple of days. And it's another blues track. And of all things, it's called Bendy. So look for that in a couple of days. In the meantime, work on your bending, and I'll see you soon.